So back in 1981, Sony introduced the Sony Mavica. It's often cited as the first commercially available digital camera, even though it's technically a electronic still video camera rather than a fully digital stills camera. It captured images using a CCD technology and recorded them onto a floppy disk, resembling a contemporary SLR. While not a bridge camera in the modern sense, it represents a significant step into the evolution of digital photography, bridging the gap between film and digital. It used a CCD sensor to capture images. The images were stored on a 2 by 2 inch floppy disk, which could hold 25 images. While not fully digital in the way we understand today, it was a crucial step into the development of digital photography. It showcased the potential of electronic stills and paved the way for developing true still cameras. So, yeah, quite amazing. And it was crazy because a few years later, Kodak released obviously a fully digital camera that was obviously commercially viable for the average person on the street kind of thing. This thing here is obviously quite hefty, but can you believe it? It's still going for 200 quid today. So beast machine. Anyway, so jumping into 1999, we had the Sony Cybershot F505, which is a 2.1 megapixel kind of hybrid camera. As you can see there, the lens actually, well, the body itself rotates on the back of the lens, so you could actually aim the screen up towards the sky or down towards the sky. So if you wanted to hold the camera up high, you could look up at the screen. If you hold it down low, you could look down at the screen. So actually quite usable in that side of things. Electronic zoom, as you can see there, autofocus, macro, spot metering, all the functionality on the back. You could even turn the LCD backlight on and off, or up and down the brightness. Yeah, the menu, the pop-up flash. Quite a basic camera. Did the movies as well. Very low resolution, obviously, compared to what we're used to today. And as we can see here, 2.11 megapixels, CCD, with the pop-up flash, mounting various hands controls. The lens was fly-by-wire, focus ring, and front 52mm thread. I think it was a 30. Oh yeah, here we go. 35mm to about 190, I think it was, equivalent. So yeah, it was a usable bit of kit, but very expensive, 900 quid or thereabouts, brand new when it was released. So yeah, jump 5 years down the line and a few more variations of the cameras, we ended up with the Sony F828, and I had one. This camera was, at the time, absolutely fantastic. Absolutely loved it. I had one thing go wrong with it in the couple of years I owned it, and that was one little grub screw fell out from underneath, came undone, don't know how. Fell out into my hand while I was on the beach. Somehow it landed in my hand. Could have lost it, and obviously would have had to try and find a replacement, but I managed to get it, bit of thread lock, and put it back in again later on. Other than that, the camera was flawless. Very, very limited on what you had back then. It was 8 megapixels. You had 5 focus points. And, here we go. 2/3 of an inch sensor, 8.8 millimeters by 6.6, and 8 megapixels. Carl's Zeiss lens, 28 to 200 millimeters. F2 to f2.8 through the range, so it was pretty fast for back then. As a all-in-one camera. You could do continuous shooting, but you were limited to not many photos, and I think 2.5 frames per second or something like that. It shot with using Memory Stick Pros, yeah, the Sony Memory Stick Pro cards or micro drives. So you were obviously, as Sony like to do, have the only way you can actually utilize it is using their sticks, which is the better route for it, or the micro drive. Which is the same today. You know, you have the CF Express A cards and SD cards. Advanced hot shoe. So it was one of the first advanced hot shoes out there, and yeah, it worked with a flash gun or whatever on top as well. I'm not sure what else. If you could put a microphone on it, I can't remember. Like I say, memory stick and memory stick Pro cards could go in it. Compact flash Type 1 and 2 micro drives could go in. Your electronic viewfinder, which obviously the 505 didn't have, was 235,000 pixels. The rear monitor actually got slightly smaller, went from 2 inches down to 1.8 inches, and had 134,000 pixels. You had power adapter and charger. It weighed £2 or around just under a kilo. It wasn't huge, so it was about 6 inches long by 3.6 by 5.3 inches. So it's not huge, but it was quite nice in the hand. It was, you know, it was a good size camera, but not ridiculous. All alloy construction, hardy, manual zoom. So when we look at some of the photos, if we can, if you look at this one here, you actually have a manual zoom lens, which is fantastic. You had your focus ring at the back if you wanted to go manual focus. You had to adjust your aperture via the dial at the back here or via buttons. So yeah, it was yeah, interesting. It did have infrared control as well, so you could use a remote on it, or it used that as for focusing in lower light. As you can see here up on the top there, you have got a full manual, aperture priority, shutter priority, program or photo mode, should we say, like advanced auto, full auto, review your pictures, go into movie mode, and then you can set up your favorite, you know, your memory setups, and also scene selection. So obviously everything from portrait to animal to landscape to whatever. You had a little screen at the top there. It showed you how many shots you'd taken and how many's left on the card and your shutter speeds and things. That's the microphone, I think, and that's a little speaker in there. There's your hot shoe, pop-up flash, and then you had all your other bits there, bracketing and other few other bits. So yeah, actually really well laid out, and you could also rotate the body as well. So it was a different way of shooting for sure. Like I say, 2.5 frames per second, maximum of 7 photos in burst mode, so you couldn't do that many. Also bracketing 3 images, maximum shutter speeds. For some reason, in program A mode, you could have 1/3200th of a second, but in aperture priority, shutter priority, and manual, you could only do 1/2000th of a second shutter speed. Don't really know why. Then you had all the other bits and pieces as well. Unlimited video, and it's a shame because I did have a few clips years ago that I found, and I can't find them. So sadly, I can't show you what the video is like. But again, you had f2 to f2.8 through the range. So f2 wide open when you're wide angle, and then just as you start to go down, you know, zoom in, you would naturally become f2.8, and that was just not the aperture changing. That was actually just the length of the lens, which was obviously changing the amount of light coming in into the lens. And then it was, you know, you had the full f2.8 to f8 was its highest. Yeah, it was a great camera. It was around about 800 quid, which was, back in 2004 was quite a lot of money for an all-in-one. And then when we look at something like when you have a look at the RX10 Mark IV, for example, and that was 1,800 quid when that first came out 8 years ago. So, you know, that jumped up, and obviously technology in that was way, way, way far beyond this camera here. But when you just look at the design of this, I'd love to have one again, because it was actually quite a nice thing to use. And, you know, a little bit more basic, but it still took really good shots. Talking about that, we're going to jump in now because I found a load of photos this afternoon, which is why I've done this video, because it made me want to travel back 20 odd years and appreciate some of the photos I managed to take with it. They're not brilliant. Some are quite cool because it's right time, or right place, right time moments. You can see the limitations of a camera like this in the early days. So let's jump over to Photoshop, and we'll open up some of the photos, and we'll have a look and have a chat about those. So for an 8 megapixel camera, it doesn't look too bad. For some reason, this was shot at f8. There's a little bit of fringing there. You can see a bit of green fringing, or it might just be bushes behind. But yeah, it's definitely not perfect. But it takes not bad photos. The colours look pretty good. Exposure straight out of the camera is not too bad. But it's showing f8, ISO 64, and 1/60th of a second. If we open this shot here, this shot I took of a bee, again f3.5, which is slightly too shallow really, but my shutter speed was at 1/60th of a second again, way too slow for a bee. And my depth of field is too shallow as well. Again, we are struggling with 5 focus points, and autofocus probably quite slow. Can't really remember that far back, 20 odd years. But actual colours, general look of the image is actually quite nice. It's just not a particularly good shot. And then we jump into stuff down the beach. So this was my friend Paul's fishing boat called Amadeus. And this is where you struggle with, look, there's a load of kids up there. Pixelation very, very, very quick because we're only on 8 megapixels, so not huge. But when you look at the image as a whole, it actually looks quite pleasant, and you can zoom in a bit. Exposure isn't great. You can see there's a bit of overexposure on the edging of the bow there, but generally not a bad shot. So probably either that day or earlier morning, I couldn't tell you on the time, Paul's phoned me and said, get your camera and get down the beach now. And he's phoned me at something like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. You know, I'm like, well, okay, half asleep, whatever. Got down on the beach, and that is there. So there we go. It's a boat that was washed up. It's called the River Dart. I actually quite like how this looks as an image. Yeah, it's a little bit pixely. That's just down to the sheer quality of the sensor. The early digital sensors weren't amazing, but I actually quite like the look of it. It's, I don't know, it's almost like a drawing kind of feel to it. Yeah, it still looks like a photo, and you've still got all the details and everything there, and it was kind of crazy. So basically what the boat did was, and I'll show you via this one, he decided he was going to risk the boat when the tide was coming down the river here. He risked trying to go up the estuary, and he got to about here, where the big buoy on the right is, and thought, there's no way we're going to make it up this, because when that tide is pulling out, it's really shifting, like 15 knots or so. So he was going to struggle to get up there before the tide was really low, and it pretty much empties. So even though it looks quite a lot of water there now, it's not. And he decided to turn, well, what would be right to him, across the beach there. He didn't know how shallow this was. This bit of the beach here is anywhere between 50 centimetres and a metre deep max. So he's just grounded the boat out. Somehow he managed to get that far. He bent the rudder and did some other damage to it as well. So it was there for, well, it got repaired on the beach, and then they floated it again and then dragged it out a bit further, and off it went. I then sold these photos to the captain whilst all of his staff were taking the piss. But again, you know, that's how big it was. There's one human there. But again, you lose detail because there's not that many megapixels. So megapixels do matter, but colors do as well. And it's actually quite a nice colors coming out of this, actually, which I quite like. One shot I really love, and it's kind of reminds me of something like Mad Max, you know, or something like that, where things are in the desert, lost, and it's like a washed up boat in the desert kind of thing. You can't see any water anywhere. It's just the sand. Yeah, I've cropped the sky out a bit because it was a moody day. But yeah, I think it's just quite a cool shot. So yeah, I took loads and loads of different shots, a few detailed shots like this one here, which I quite like actually, because it's got that. It's one of these shots I actually remember taking and thinking, let's get that in there because that looks quite cool. The water was still dripping, as you can see. Can you see the water droplets there, dripping out of the hull from where obviously the bilge pump is or whatever. But yeah, so they had to repair something to do with this and this bit down here, if I remember correctly. but not a bad shot. And then another one similar but different was this one. So let's have a quick test. Let's go into raw features, and considering this is just a JPEG, how much detail is hidden in there? A bit. That's the shadows. Just for some reason it's making it go really red. So yeah, there's not a lot much detail. Modern camera, you could pull that right out. All the detail would have been hidden in there. So yeah, it was still quite a cool shot because you've got the triangular bit, the shadow, and then you've got the buoy there, or the marker, and then the colours and everything, and the hidden bits and pieces. So quite like that as a shot. Looking across the beach itself, showing you the size of itself, massive expanse of sand, and actually the tide hadn't finished going out. It was still another 50 feet, 60 feet or so more to go. So it goes out a long, long way, and it's really, really quite a large space. As you see, Dungeness Power Station there, and all the cloud formations and crazy stuff going on. But I quite like the colours it's producing. Another one here. God, it was actually a really cool day. I remember this. More moody clouds. Shame I cut this one off on the right, which I always wanted to do something with, and I never could. And it needed to be in the centre of the shot, and I never took it, obviously. And now we've got this huge, expansive space, so we're just going to do an automated thing and see what Photoshop decides it's going to do. It could be crap. It could be good. Who knows? Let's see what it does. It's generating quite a bit of thing. That's not too bad, but we have a harsh line that we'd have to get rid of. You can still see it there. Well, actually, that's not bad. There was a bit of sea. Or we just have, yeah, that's probably the nicest one. Just need to sort that edge out. But there you go. So we couldn't have done that 20 years ago with Photoshop. Well, you could, but not very easily. So yeah, that shot there was quite fun. So out near Rye, well, out towards Canberra near Rye, we were shooting the fireworks, and that was the 13th of November 2005 at 9:46 p.m. Sony F828, f5, 8-second exposure, and ISO 64, and wide angle, 28 millimeters. Not a bad shot. And I actually thought I lost this shot, and there was another one as well. I wonder if it was the same settings. This one here, and it was all the waves, all the zigzags in the water, but it was really quite calm. So I don't know how that happened. Was my settings are very similar? Don't really know. Did I risk it and go longer? No, it's still 8 seconds. F5, 8 seconds. So yeah, same settings, but maybe there was just a bit of a breeze going on. So jumping back to the boats, my friend Paul, who had Amadeus, the fishing boat, he phoned me early morning again, 2 weeks down the line from the first boat going up to this one, which was called the Manav Star, and yeah, the Dungeness lifeboat is there, and I got a shout out, come and bring your camera now, kind of thing. And it was massively windy, so there was lots of spray in the air, and as you can see here, if I zoom in here, you've got lots of water softening, shall we say, that's on my lens basically, and so that kind of ruins that area of the shot. Luckily, with cropping power, we can go up somewhere like that, which it does need a bit of a rotate. There we go. Bring that in a bit. Bring that in a little bit there. Oh, bring that down slightly. There we go. And we actually printed this shot for, back then, the RNLI fundraiser thing and something else, I can't remember, for a charity. And we sold 10 of these printed on A2, framed, and they sold quite well. Went for quite a good thing in the auctions. So, for a charity auction. But right place, right time, obviously helped with a phone call. But it's kind of cool. Really quite cool shot. And actually, I really quite like that. So that was when it had just happened. And this is the same day, but later in that day. That's how far it got pushed up the beach. So sunset going down, they are now trying to dig. They've only got a certain amount of hours. They've got to dig around and build up a wall to stop the seawater getting up to where the boat was, so they could repair the hull, which had, I think, put a hole in the side of it. I can't remember, but it smashed the groins to pieces. And eventually, well, 2 or 3 weeks later, it got dragged back out by two massive tugs and was set back to sail. Quite an interesting one. This one here as well. Wicked shot. This is a load of sea mist. Literally came rolling down the river like this, and where I was stood, a mile or so away, you could see it happening, and it was amazing. And I just remember thinking, bloody hell, that's mad. And eventually it rolled past the church. Church disappeared a bit, and off it went. So warm day, and then suddenly the cold water and everything obviously creates mist. Sunset and nice blue sky, but then this is where the older cameras failed, the dynamic range and noise in the shadows. So yeah, not brilliant, but still looks cool, and it's one of those shots that I will probably never be able to recreate, you know. So it's kind of cool. What else have we got? Dark moody skies looking towards Eastbourne from Hastings. Or Bexhill, maybe. I think it was Hastings. No, that's Couden. But you can see the sun rays coming up through the clouds. Moody day, looks kind of cool. And then a couple more, just so you kind of get the idea and just get the feel for it. This shot here, nice reflections. And if you just look at them as a photo, how much do you pick them apart? You know, it's a shame about the pylons. The reflections are cool, but a shame there's a bit of ripples in the water. But the colours are nice. Big splashing wave coming in, just out near Dungeness Power Station. And the sunset going down, and it was just amazing because it was so big. I mean, I'm 5'10" tall. That wave there was at least 8 to 10 feet high from where I was stood. So basically, it hid the sun, which gave me a nice silhouette. But there was enough dynamic range to pull that out here, the shadows in the wave, to actually still show some of the white and everything. So it works okay. But again, when you zoom in, it's quite grainy. But it is what it is. You know, this is early modern cameras at the end of the day for the digital side. Red and Black Hut, which everyone knows if you're from East Sussex, you would recognise that, the end of Camber Sands and the nature reserve. It was, I think, for storing nets originally, then someone bought it and used it for their sort of summer house when they went to the beach. And now it's just there as a bit of a long-standing monument. I don't know who owns it, but it always looks cool and it stands out. There's like a wicker statue there, someone just looking out to sea as well. And then one more shot for the road. This shot here, and I know it's not the best shot in the world, but it has a bit of charm to it, and it just makes you want to go to the beach. It's Camber Sands. We have the old groin posts sticking up, bit of a sunset, nice colours, and it just looks cool. You've got kite surfers in the distance, and yeah, it's printed A2 on my brother-in-law's wall in his bathroom, so it's framed and everything. It looks nice, and just proves you could print quite a good size, and even with these cameras early on. So yeah, I just thought it's nice to go back 20 years and just kind of see what I was up to then, photos wise. Again, a lot of them were right place, right time, and you know, the way you were taking photos back then were slightly different. We weren't relying on the technology, you know, the faster autofocus or the megapixels so much. We were relying on actually just spending a little more time and actually taking the shots and trying to be a little bit more creative with what you've got. And you know, like I say, a lot of it is like right place, right time with, you know, a washed up ship or two. You know, what the chances of two of them being washed up within a few weeks of each other was pretty crazy. But yeah, it's fantastic. And you know, the colours and everything, I'm actually really quite amazed by how good they look. And you know, yeah, it was interesting. And if I can find more, I will be doing another video, part two maybe. But it's really interesting, and just shows you how technology has become cheaper. Because what can you buy now for just £1,000? You know, that F505 was £900, say. The F828 was around 800-ish. you know, obviously the RX10 when it first came out was 1,800 quid for the RX10 Mark IV. But what can you buy for say £1,000 now? You can get a lot of camera for £1,000. So yeah, it's amazing what we can get now and how good the technology is. So we are spoilt really, but just shows you even a camera 21 years old is still cool. So anyway, please hit the subscribe button, little notification bell as well, and I shall see you soon for another video.